Thank you for staying with us. Let's dig into the news now. In our first story, apart from the machete wounds, injuries, and fractures sustained in his arms and legs, doctors who conducted surgical operations on the Sisala West Nasara NPP coordinator Idris Waleka have revealed that he also has his lower jaws broken and gland trauma, resulting in partial blindness. Medical Director of the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Robert Amesie, who led a team of surgeons for the operation, said the surgeons had to work in turns to deal with his situation. JoyNews' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam now reports from Wa.
The 43-year-old Sisala West Constituency Nasara coordinator, Idris Waleka Kinsasa, was rolled out of the Bulu Hospital with an ambulance for further medical attention due to the multiple machete wounds and fractures he sustained allegedly from some MPP tags of a polling station executive elections.
You know, what we call the lower jaw. He has sustained 2 fractures, in the jaw, and also he broke the 2 bones in the right forearm and then 1 bone in the left forearm, and multiple lacerations. 1 on the left lower limb, the other on his forehead, and then 1 on his right forearm.
Medical Director of the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Robert Amesie, said due to the varied degrees of injuries, including him partial blind as a result of gland trauma, the surgery and treatment was done in phases and with different surgeons.
Exactly what we did was the maxillofacial surgeon fixed the jaw, and then myself, the orthopedic surgeon, I fixed the right radius and ulna, the left ulna, and then we repaired the tendons that were lacerated.
How many hours did you use to fix?
So this was a combined surgery of orthopedics and maxillofacial. So it took almost 2 hours to get everything fixed.
He said it would take the 43-year-old father of 3 some time for him to recover fully.
What I think we need to also work on is to have our clinical psychologists also, do some therapy on him, because if a group of people attack you, apart from the physical trauma that you will sustain, you have this emotional, psychological trauma too. So it's a multidisciplinary approach that we are offering him. So maxillofacial, orthopedics, then the clinical psychologist. Accordingly, he alleged that he got also blunt trauma to the eye. The ophthalmology unit is also handling that. So we are quite a number of teams that are helping to attend to him. So we just hope that together we can support him so that he can get back to his original state.
Meanwhile, in the Sisala West district capital of Bolu, there was a press conference that was held to counter accusations leveled against the Upper West Regional Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Sali, and a host of other regional executives of the NPP on the dastardly and despicable act. The group, calling themselves Team Majid and led by Hudumwa, first of all condemned the inhumane and violent attack meted out to the constituency Nasara coordinator.
Them that act in no uncertain terms, irrespective of the magnitude of the crime he was committing at the time of the night, we believe strongly that he should have just been arrested and handed over to the chief, or better still, the police.
They accuse the constituency executives of not being true to their words, but rather engage in hide and seek with the supporters, resulting in the unfortunate class.
Unfortunately, they could not complete the exercise and have agreed to start from Desme the next day. The constituency executives rather went to Facho instead of Desme as agreed with the regional reps. The reps heard of that and cautioned them not to conduct any elections there without their supervision in the interest of fairness. But they refused and went ahead with their agenda, which resulted into the clashes leading to our supporters suffering various degrees of injuries.
They also jumped to the defense of the Apostle Minister and the security personnel deployed to the area.
The Constitution Secretary cited security reasons as the basis of not conducting elections at Kunkoko, Kusale, Desme, Puluma, and Kopuluma, and other communities. Now, if the regional minister deploys security to beef up the men on the grounds to support the committee to do their work, does that amount to abuse of power? No. Did the Constitution Secretary know exactly what abuse of power is? No. The Constitution Executives are aware they will lose this year's election in totality because the good people of Sisala West, MPP, are tired of their lies, fake motor keys, fights, propaganda, and several years of autocratic leadership style.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam.
Let's talk the law now. And Minister of Justice Godfrey Adame is asking the Chief Justice to permit more broadcast of cases of immense national importance. To date, only the presidential election petitions of 2012 and 2020 have been open to the media coverage in the law courts of the country. However, given the increasing spate of what he describes as improperly examined commentary on cases, Godfrey Adame says there will be the need to allow cameras in court. When this is done, the AG believes the poverty of legal reasoning behind certain cases dismissed by the Supreme Court, and in respect of which the state emerges the victor, will be exposed for all to see. The Attorney General was speaking at the opening session of the 2021-2022 Legal Year Bench, Bar and Faculty Conference.
I throw a challenge to the deans of the universities herein gathered to encourage the academia to which they belong to undertake proper examination and critique of judgment for publication in the review of Ghana law, rather than resorting to social media with ill thought through, improperly examined commentary on cases and other matters of national importance. Ghana cannot afford to gamble with its future by sacrificing the time-honored noble attribute to the legal profession on the altar of technology. Reflecting on these unhealthy developments I've spoken about, my Lord Chief Justice, sometimes I really think the way to go is to permit more broadcasts of cases of immense national importance and not the election petition alone. When this is done, what sometimes constitutes the poverty of legal reasoning behind certain cases dismissed by the Supreme Court, and in respect of which the state emerges the victor, will be exposed for all to see.
Now, pressure is mounting on government to pay public workers neutrality allowance owed for the past 3 months. Scores of people seeking government services were left stranded as civil and local government staff withdrew their services across the country beginning yesterday. ClockSAG, in a memo to its members, said it was reactivating its January strike, which it suspended to make way for negotiations with government. Our reporters have been on the ground gauging the impact of the industrial action. Let's start with Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku's report from Kumasi.
Essie traveled from home to make enquiries at the Social Welfare Department, only to be told the office has been closed due to the industrial action.
It's a bit dicey, so we need to stop whatever we are doing and just go back to where we're coming from. If you basically have to travel from a very far distance to make an enquiry and you get here and you can't be attended to, you've wasted whatever money you had on you.
Members of ClockSAG are clamoring for their 20% neutrality allowance. The allowance is to compensate members to abstain from active politics.
So as you can see, the doors of some offices have been locked, and in an earlier engagement with the regional chairman for ClockSAG, Mr. Alexander Obi, he indicated that a task force will be deployed to ensure all members imbibe or comply with this directive.
ClockSAG embarked on strike about 2-3 months ago. The same day the strike was called off, there's on condition that our grievances will be fulfilled. So the government signed MOU with us, that the CLOSAC, and there was a one provision in our condition of service known as neutrality allowance. That's the allowance the government decided to give to CLOSAC members for bearing us from active politics. So when we call out strike, we thought the government would pay it within February. February has passed, no show. April, no show. March, April, no show. So yesterday we had a meeting with the NEC, our highest decision body after Congress, and from what our executive was saying, government has no plans of paying the neutrality allowance any moment from now. So we had no other option to resume the strike. Yes, so that's why we call our members to reactivate the strike. So for now or today, all the CLOSAC members are to stay home, not going back to the workplaces. We are on strike.
For Joy News, Emmanuel Bright-Kweku reporting.
Well, the case was no different here in Accra, as some stranded customers at the Registrar General's Department shared their frustration with Michael Papani Ashali.
At the end of this strike are people innocent Ghanaians who are here to do business, but are disappointed, have had to be turned away, wasted their time after hearing that the people they are here to meet are on strike. I have a few people who are here who speak to me and tell us how this really affects some of them. Some of them are here to do business. I'll talk to some of them. So, Chief, good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, what were you here to do?
We're here to register a business, resource and business, yes.
And when you went there, what were you told?
Actually, there's a man at the door, and he told us that, they are on strike now, so we should go back. I asked him when he started. He said yesterday evening. And so he told me that, we asked him when it's going to end, and he said it's till further notice. So.
As a business owner, how does this make you feel?
It's rather unfortunate and sad because you have to register a business and then being turned away, it's bad. It's bad for us. Coming all the way from where we came from, then come here, it's bad for us. So.
Let me ask the lady here. Well, what were you here to do?
I also came to transact a business.
Okay. What business specifically? Marriage or business? To register your business?
I can't talk about that.
Okay, that's fine. But I mean, coming to meet this notice that we are not working, we're on strike, how does that make you feel?
It's so uncalled for. I don't know, but it's very bad. It's very bad. It's very bad. It's really bad. We were told, as you said, we were told that it started yesterday evening, and I don't know. They should come back. They should come back.
Do you feel more disappointed that you are not informed about the strike?
I am very disappointed. Very, very disappointed.
Mostly these strikes, they already give us, say, a head notice before, but just for you to waste your money and come here and then they've been told that they're on strike, you have nothing to do but just to go back. So we would have wished that they could have given us prior notice for us to know, so that we could have planned the day well.
Off the top of my head, if I recall, this should be about the second time we are having a strike. And for people who have to come here, this is going to be difficult for you. I mean, what do you think about strikes, especially from civil servants?
Okay, I don't know what is in, but I'm working at an auditing firm. So we have clients who are depending on us to finish the work and finish this statutory requirement. And if you come, the strike, because I've already sold my time, and then my client already has something, say, expecting results, and then I go back to him and tell him that, okay, this is what is happening. I realize that it slows down business. It slows down. So I don't know, but whatever it's happening, they should resolve it as quick as possible to help us stakeholders.
I believe you were here to register something or transact business.
Yes.
What were you told?
I was told they're on strike. They're not working. Wow. So I don't know what to say.
What were you coming to do here?
Actually, I was coming to file my returns and then to do a re-registration. Yes, and I'm coming all the way from Tamale.
So what are you going to do now? All the way from Tamale?
I don't know. I don't know when the strike is going to end. And so I have to go back.
Let's continue on that tangent. And the Trades Union Congress is warning the government to avoid using the war in Ukraine as a reason not to increase their daily minimum wage in the next tripartite committee meeting. According to the TUC, which has the largest number on government's payroll in the public sector, the economy witnessed turbulent times even before the war in Ukraine. The union says it will not accept excuses any longer in its subsequent dialogues and will resort to industrial action if demands are not met. Samuel Mbura has more in this report.
General Secretary of TUC, Dr. Yaba, speaking to the media after a pre-May Day forum, said the sufferings of the Ghanaian workers have now been exacerbated by the current economic situation, and the Trade Union Congress will not allow that to continue.
So the job crisis, predates, Ukraine. The job crisis came before COVID. Therefore, we think that it is not right to blame COVID and Ukraine for every job crisis that we have in this country. That is not right, and we are not going to accept that. The Trade Union Congress, which is leading organized labor, is very cautious, and we always are biased towards dialogue. We hardly want to strike because strike is a very difficult thing to do. It's like war. So before we declare war on the employers, we have to make sure we have good reason. This time, we have the good reason to do it. Therefore, we caution that the employers must listen to us, and they should not just listen. They should also hear us, because the workers of this country are suffering too much, and we should not allow it to continue. Those who are in charge of this country must know that without workers, this country cannot progress.
He claimed that there are attempts by the government in the next tripartite committee's meeting not to increase the daily minimum wage. He said this would be resisted.
We have the National Tripartite Committee. The National Tripartite Committee has started the process towards determining the minimum wage for this year. For us, that is a do and die. We are going to make sure that minimum wage for workers for this year should not be below inflation. And this will be extended to public sector workers as well. So there's a battle ahead of us. And I can see organized labor is ready to fight. And we are going to do that.
Some public sector workers have also been expressing worry about the increased cost of living in the country, which they say is affecting their incomes.
And as a worker, I expect the government to fix the economy, do what is expected of the government to do, so that it can alleviate the poverty in the country, so it can also cushion up the workers in the country.
It's an undeniable fact that every Tom, Dick, and every worker in this country is having the heat, is feeling the heat of the economy. Things are just not going right for everybody. And you could see the consistency at which prices of goods and services are just increasing, like I would say, at an increasing rate, and eroding the value of our incomes, especially our disposable income.
The reality is that they should go back and then treat workers to be happy and work. That's what I can say for government too.
We are telling the government that workers, we are not happy. This thing is killing us softly. We are not happy. So we need him to do something else.
The pre-May Day forum was organized by a German non-profit foundation, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, on the theme protecting jobs and incomes in the era of COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Samuel Mbura's report for JoyNews, Accra.
Now, in our final story, the Asokore Mampong municipality in the Ashanti region has a number of communities recording perennial flooding with devastating impact of the floodwaters, including the loss of lives and property. As the rain set in, the local assembly says it is taking measures to contain the floods. Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku visited some of the flood-prone communities to speak to residents and filed this report.
It's that season of the year where many households are left stranded at the mercy of the rains. Many households living in swampy areas become worried when the rains begin. Farouk has been working as a tailor for a decade at Sawaba, a flood-prone community. His shop is located close to a trench.
So in case a bar, like 4 hours rain now.
The drains are smaller, so when it rains heavily, they overflow their banks and flood this area. Residents in this community ousted the former assembly member for failing to deal with the floods. Farouk, however, alleges the current officer is neither putting in efforts to solve the menace.
In January, the NADMO officials visited the area, which I directed them to the houses of the victims. But nothing has happened afterwards.
Honorable Red,
not only have the floods destroyed people's properties, the roads constructed over this bridge at the Sawaba enclave is riddled with potholes.
So where I am currently standing is the Pelelia Drain located here in the Asokore Mampong municipality. This enclave has for the past years been flagged as a flood-prone area, with some records of members of this community dying and others having lost their properties as a result of heavy downpours.
Along the drain are makeshift structures belonging to squatters and some business owners. These squatters have had to erect their buildings on pedestals to escape the floods.
You can't use the route when it rains. That is why I have built my shop on pillars.
Last time
because of the floods, we've erected our homes on pedestals. Few meters away from the Pelelia Trench sits a huge building and an abandoned mosque.
Even though the mosque and the story building behind me have been marked for demolition, you still can see some building being erected by constructors over here. This could pose danger to members of this community as a result of these heavy downpours that might be coming in the subsequent days.
Over the years, the Ashanti region has recorded devastating consequences of torrential rains, with properties running into thousands of Ghana cedis being lost. Mambo has been working at the Sepe community for close to 15 years. While many lament their losses, Mambo, who owns this vulcanizing shop close to the major drain in this community, says he is not affected by the floods.
What happened? I mean, money there in so to a year said there. Maybe the daddy Juana may need out of them. I did me.
When it floods, I am not so much affected. I am able to work when the water subsides. Reports reveal occasional flooding is attributed to climate variability and the change, as well as poor physical planning and flaws in the country's drainage network. Some residents proffer solutions.
And
that is how we wrap the AM News. Up next, the news review. We'll be right back. Here we are with the news review. Welcome aboard. And of course, I'd also have to say welcome aboard to a certain Samuel Kojo Briggs. Oh, please anoint me. Anoint
I should anoint you.
Yes, please.
Really?
Have you forgotten your role in the Bible?
Oh, I mean, that one. I think I anointed who?
David.
David. Yeah. So I was the one.
Of course, Saul, David.
Charlie. I was a powerful. No, okay.
You be big, man.
I'm a powerful man.
Powerful man. Charlie, Thanks for catching up with us on the AM show.
My father, one of my fathers, is a reverend minister of the Methodist Church.
Oh, I see.
So if I should probably take after him, then I can anoint you in the future.
We are late too. Time is time. The clock is ticking. If the way you go, if you should take after him. But we have a lot of matters to discuss.
Sure.
We'll see whether at the tail end we can sneak in myjoyonline.com. But let's start with you. You have the daily graphic.
Sure. It comes with a photograph of the Minister for Information, Kojo Ponkroma. It says the economy rebounds faster. Government quickens process towards pre-COVID era levels. That's according to the Information Minister. A bit of the brief, the leader. It says government has assured the citizenry of a quicker turnaround in the economic fortunes of the country after data has shown that the economy expanded at a faster rate than projected. Ooh, okay. Over 3,550 deferred students reinstated. Oh, this is good news then. This is in relation to...
So that's the 6,000 of the 6,000 number?
Exactly.
So that would leave maybe another 2,500 plus people affected.
This is good. Okay, I think it's still, about the... It says about 3,350 out of the 6,000 students of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology whose programs of study were deferred for the non-payment of fees have had their status restored. This followed a window of opportunity offered by the management of the university to the affected students to pay the fees and have their status reinstituted. Now, don't blame economic challenges on Russia-Ukraine war. TUC tells government. Anyway.
So there's been quite an interesting back and forth banter on that, right? Because, you know, the Russian embassy here recently came out to say, don't blame us for your economic woes in Ghana and beyond. We are not the cause. And some have come out to say that, no, that is just, I've heard the likes of Sticker, Dr. Stephen Amwa, say that they are just speaking to defend and protect their sovereignty.
Oh, sure, yes.
But that the Russo-Ukrainian war has affected everything. I feel, to be fair, you can find middle ground when it comes to this. And here's why. Pre the Russia-Ukraine war, you take a country like Ghana, where we're not already struggling in terms of our exchange rate, where we're not struggling in terms of some aspects of our economy, we were not in the best of places.
Yeah.
Okay? Some of the problems that the agri sector is facing with fertilizer and the rest, it's not to say that before the war between Russia and Ukraine, there were not problems. But I do agree that the war has exacerbated some of the things. So that is the middle ground that I feel many people are not, towing or following. So you see people from the opposition saying, oh no, it has nothing to do. It does have an impact. And you see those from the ruling administration saying it is all on the back of this. That too is not true. The middle ground is that it is more half and half. We don't know whether it's 60-40 or whatever, but it's definitely not.
Sure.
As
just that the government was or had been explaining about the impact of COVID on the economy. That the economy was really affected badly by the COVID-19. And just when the economy wanted or was about recovering, then the Ukraine war also came in. I agree that it should not be blamed wholly on the war. Some part of it should be, the responsibility should be on us. How we have managed the economy, to say that maybe we didn't...
Because different countries have managed the economy, their economies in different ways. Some are very buoyant, others are really bad. In Latin America, some countries are faring very poorly. In fact, we have not done that badly. I mean, when you look at even the recent 5.something% given us by the Ghana Statistical Service in terms of the economy's growth, you would see that we've not done that badly. Again, sometime in February, the World Bank had in fact said that food was going to be a bit problematic across the globe. And that is when we recorded our highest food inflation, I think, since independence. You get it? So there are different dynamics to take stock of. But the fact, too, remains that some economies find themselves where they do because of poor management. And in our instance, look, let's be fair, some of our spending, I wouldn't call it useless. And me, I don't mince words. I don't care. I wouldn't call it useless, but I think that some of our spending is exceeding, especially for a country like ours. It's like Patrickwa, a pauper, saying that all the money I have, I want to expend it on a Benz when your family is starving. Do you get it? So sometimes that's the lack of reasoning that goes into some aspects of our economy. But beyond that, I don't feel we have done exceedingly poorly. We've done bad, but not exceedingly poorly.
Sure, but it's good to hear that the economy is rebounding. Just to hear that we grew faster than projected is even reassuring. But I always say that these sort of figures or numbers should translate into the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian, because if you're measuring how people feel, it's not about the numbers, it's about how people will tell you, I'm able to afford my 3 square meals a day.
But you see, when we have those discussions, it also comes to this. The macro will affect the micro. The macro will affect the micro. I think the only glitch in there is our economists, it's like my problem with the technical people in this country, our engineering and stuff. You see us put up structures and it appears sometimes we don't get it right. But my point is that our economic management teams and blah, 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 they seem not to be able to strike that balance between the macro and the micro. So they'll be telling you, on the macro level, we're doing this and we are so good. Charlie, how come I'm not feeling it in my pocket? So I get the point, but without the macro too, you will not have.
Of course, but that's why we have to find, like you said, we have to find a way of translating that one into the ordinary man's life. For him to feel that, in fact, what you're talking about, the economy growing, I'm feeling it and I can tell that we are. Maybe that's something we need to find. And when you were speaking, I was thinking about the fact that the poor man says, I wouldn't want to spend beyond 2,000.
Right.
But he's always spending beyond 2,000. How can you, progress with that attitude? So
sometimes too, it is again on the back of the economy in which you're operating. Because you have some, I know people who come to you and say, boss, I used to spend about maybe X amount a week on food. Nothing has changed in terms of the quantity of food I am eating, but everything has changed in terms of the pricing of the food. So now I'm paying about 2.5 times.
My analogy here was even about Ghana. That Ghana is a poor man who says that I don't have to spend beyond 2,000.
Okay, so you're using the generality of it.
Be spending beyond 2,000. I'm asking, how do you save for the future with this? How do you progress? So that's why people ask the questions. We should look at areas into which we are investing. We borrow.
Right.
Which areas do we invest? Those areas, are there areas that will bring up or bring out dividends for us to pay off those loans?
Are they whether it's infrastructure or whatever projects, are they ones that can fund themselves in future? Are they self-sustaining?
Pay off those kind of loans.
You have a crucial point there. Because a lot of the time we do things that, look, if you take the N1 and others, their benefit in terms of opening up town and all of that, massive. Look at the Tema motorway. Some 60 years down the line or so, we're still benefiting from it. Right into the industrial heart of Tema. But some of the projects we execute, we've pumped a lot of money into them. We get nothing from them as a people. And that vicious cycle has been one of our greatest woes as a country because, and it is also on the part of this, another vicious cycle. Let's say you're NDC, I'm MPP. You know the cycle. You go out, your projects, done, Yamutu. When I come, I want to do my own projects. That I'm sorry, stupidity is what has led us here. Because how can it be that, so the people of Ghana have a kitty with 100 cedis. You come, you expend 20 cedis of that. It's left with 80 cedis. Trying to work out some of the infrastructure, health, the issues of the country. You spend those 20 cedis already. I come in, instead of continuing the work, maybe with another 10 cedis to ensure that your 20 cedis plus my 10 cedis will give benefit, core benefit to the Ghanaian people. I shelve what you've done. And I start same projects with another 20 cedis. In the end, we would lose about 40 plus cedis and still not attain what we are aiming at. You will come in again and you see, so we continue losing. It makes no sense. When you say it, our leaders act as though...
It's a discussion we as a country should have. And to say that if I do something, I don't come to say NDC or I don't come to say MPP. It is Ghana.
That's where we are.
It is the tendency for people to say, oh, I did it. That's why when they come, they tend to leave them. I've been studying this and I feel that this is the main reason. That I won't do it for you to claim glory. That, oh, I mean, it's my project.
Do you know why that?
You have not done
do you know why that persists? Because we don't, like Obama said, you don't need strong men. You need strong institutions. If you have the right institutions, it's not everything that you really fight over because the institutions take over. So when you roll over policies, it is state policy. It is. It's not so much about.
I think
that's Kufuor's policy.
That's where we should drive.
Mohammed's policy. It is Kufuor's policy. It is Rawlings's policy.
That's where we should drive towards because if I come to build an interchange, it doesn't. You don't call it my interchange. It is the state's interchange.
Right.
Maybe when we get there, things of this nature where we leave a project in the bush for it to go. I mean, to deteriorate would end because it doesn't make sense. We spend huge monies on them and we let them to go. Anyway, let's move on to other papers.
All right, so the Ghanaian Times newspaper at pre-May Day Forum, no minimum wage below inflation rate this year, TUC to government. And that is literally a threat. They are taking up the matter and they are saying, Charlie, this year we no come to play. Nana yesrewa to mue All right. Anyway. So the Ghana Trades Union Congress has stated categorically that the 2022 minimum wage will not be below the current inflation rate. Dr. Yaba, General Secretary, has hinted. He said their opinion was based on the current hardship workers in the country were suffering, stressing that there was a need for employers to listen to the cries of workers.
This is a discussion they've had for a very long time.
Yeah.
That we don't understand why you should give us a minimum wage, which is below the inflation rate.
Right.
Because if you give a minimum wage, which is below the inflation rate, of course, then...
You're just saying, basically...
Nothing.
Yeah.
Because the prices of goods have gone up to at this level, and then you're giving us an increment, which is, or a minimum wage, which is below. Of course, that amounts to nothing, really. So let's see how this goes. You know, in negotiation, you come with yours, I come with mine. We meet ourselves.
We find, a meeting.
So let's see how this goes.
But just to wrap with this, World Bank urges Ghana to initiate action to resolve debt burden. You know, what I was talking about, the figure from the Ghana Statistical Service in recent times, it lowers our debt to GDP by just a bit. So I think we're hovering around, is it 76 point something percent, if memory serves. But there's still a lot here. Very interesting bits you should check out from page 13 of the paper when it comes to what the World Bank has been telling us. You know, their country rep, Pierre Laporte, has also had a lot of things to tell us about our economy. I always say that we shouldn't depend too much on these other institutions, Bretton Woods and others, but we don't seem to be getting it right internally. So it is also good that we listen to the World Bank and the IMF and also develop homegrown policies, just as with our democracy. Our economy, or economic management also must be homegrown. There must be something Ghanaian about our economic management. It can't just be capitalism a la United States. We are different.
Let's even say African. Let's the whole of.
But even African is pretty broad because it's pretty
let's
diverse.
start from there. Let the continent develop, our own standards.
Right.
That we will not depend on a non-African standard to measure how we are doing. Because I may be right, I may be wrong. The economists may have to help us here. Could these Bretton Woods institutions push us in a corner just so, look, you always have to come to us? That's sort of things I do have. And I feel that if we should develop our own standards, it may help us. But like you said, we have not been able to win ourselves from these institutions all the years we've been around. And it's something that I think our economists and the managers of our economies should come together and work towards.
I think these could have been the areas where we could have extended the African peer review mechanism and other such things. Recently, our country was complaining about the Fitch and Moody's and the Standard & Poor's ratings. Can we have an African setting where we assess ourselves on a fair level?
Exactly.
And that's where the problem is.
We should hint that one should be on a level of sincerity, and fairness. Anyway, are you done with yours?
Yes.
Okay, let me check the Finder newspaper. It says Republic Bank records 89.88 million cedis profit in 2021. Oh, That is good news. Dr. Okoboy appointed acting CEO of NHIA. I saw the letter yesterday afternoon. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah. So that means he's coming in to replace Dr. Lydia, I think Jani Selby.
Okay.
I don't know whether the Lydia is correct, but Jani Selby, right?
Well, government legally acquired and owns Accra Pehuasem lands. That's according to Lands Commission. Okay. I'm sure it's an issue that has come into the media lately,
right,
where we heard some resident complaining that government wants to come and demolish their buildings, but the government said, oh, what I'm trying to do is to protect state lands. But why?
The same state land that sometimes we hear and follow up on, and hear that some people who walk the corridors of power have claimed for themselves. That kind of state land?
Well, but there's a Supreme Court ruling. There's a Supreme Court ruling that makes it illegal for people to buy state lands.
Oh.
But you have to...
For here?
For Ghana, yes. But you have to buy...
No. I guess a minimum, but for here. You don't know why it's going on.
You're being mischievous, eh?
You don't know. Let's leave it there.
Anyway, but my point about this is, why do we always have to sit down unconcerned for people to put up structures in unapproved, in quote, I'm using my word advisedly, unapproved areas?
Why do you think? Some bro will chop the money from the assembly. Some bro will do this, do that. They'll do chop. Then you, the person who have,
purchase the land,
put up the structure, they will come later and demolish your building. And that's that.
It becomes a burden on the state.
It's a scheme.
Why does that happen? I don't get it. That we have planners at the various assemblies and then building inspectors who are supposed to ensure that the right things are done. We look on concern for things to be done in wayward ways, and then we come back, spend the state resources, demolish, and even pay judgment.
Do you remember when Elvis Ifriankra of the NDC said, some of the things you do you think we are fools? Our hands are tied. Do you remember our hands are tied? Do you still want to go on?
Okay, let's move on. Religious harmony is bedrock of prevailing peace. That's according to the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia.
The Daily Guide newspaper, civil local government workers strike, traders hijack Tamale interchange. Think about that. It's on page 6. Review Supreme Court rules, and that's something we're discussing this morning. What do you think about that, though? He says frivolous cases, but who determines what is frivolous? And that's where that's my sticking point with what he says. There are so-called frivolous cases that have later been, had a turnaround and different things have happened. Do you get it? So who determines what is frivolous? On the face of the law, though, prima facie, you may see certain things and say that this case has no merit, ab initio. Those are different, but we can get into that. And there's also what he says about some cases of national concern being televised so that the politicization of it can be taken out. Interesting developments. All economies in trouble. That's according to Chairman of ECOWAS, Ibn Chambers. And don't we agree? We all agree, but the trouble is different on different levels. Just to wrap with entertainment, Ifya Odos snubs Shatta. And of course, this is Shatta Wale. Van Vicker denies accident rumor, and ASAP Rocky arrested in Los Angeles on a charge of assault with a deadly weapon stemming from an alleged non-fatal shooting last year, the police said. So that's the story.
boyfriend of Rihanna, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh. So he's gonna live his life. Oh.
You might be good at singing, huh?
I may. No, I'm good at talking.
Okay.
Not exactly singing.
The way you've been singing this morning, and I will be there, we should probably be looking at.
No, weather, no.
Anyway, let me do the Daily Statesman. It says, Ayoko says we can share in after gains, and we've been talking about Africa setting its own standards.
Right.
I think after is one thing that we can build on, really, if we take all the necessary steps to making it work. And we can look at the after example and build on. Really, we are lucky to have the headquarters here. That
is show for nothing. Let me burst your bubble.
Oh, you think?
After is going to serve certain countries that are already prepared.
Oh, but
that are some countries even now are benefiting far more in East Africa and others from AFTA. And it will continue that way until countries like Ghana. Let me tell you, probably the biggest gain we've had is, oh yeah, you're peaceful, you are this, you are that. So let's locate AFTA, here. It's Secretariat here. Beyond that, go and check. What the real, so I'm saying that moving on, we should stop with the rhetoric and actually get the real benefits.
I also know companies that are really in Ghana.
No, I'm not saying that we are not getting anything out of it. I'm saying that a lot of it is hype, talk. I've spoken to people on AFTA. The things we could be doing to benefit from the AFTA arrangement in Ghana, we're doing maybe what? We're scratching the surface.
Well, but you see, it's about your preparedness.
That's exactly my point.
So this is you knew it was coming. How prepared were? I remember there were conferences. We had some in Takrady and all of that.
Right.
How to prepare companies for AFTA. Beyond the talk, what happened? What actual things did we do to get these companies prepared?
Right.
That if we knew we had companies that were into tomato production, that were into rice production, what did we do to ensure that we create market for these companies?
Right.
I know companies that are into rice production that really need help.
Right.
How do we think about, okay, look, you're into rice production. We think that with AFTA, we can push you up.
Those are the exact points I am making, talking about. You interact with a lot of these economists and people in the trade space, and they tell you some things that make your heart, bleed. So yes, getting the HQ here, the Secretariat, fantastic. But beyond that, let it not become a white elephant.
Exactly. Maybe there are more things we should be doing than just having it here and talking. We love talking too much as a country. We should be working.
I have only one paper left, so you can quickly look at your headlines and they'll come in as well.
AG cautions propagandist lawyers. Okay. Nukes SRC to bail out the Fed KNUSC student. Wow, this will be good news then. Because we've been joining Nukes and SRC, really, we've not seen so much. So if you can come in here in the times when students are troubled to save them, that would be good on the part of the SRC and Nukes. Publisher says NCSA, NCA confer on Cybersecurity Act, GIZ, FDA increase vaccine safety knowledge, LG introduces, delayed bias justice security threat, says Kandapa. And fertilizer scarcity bites. Government owes suppliers 436 million cedis.
Okay.
See, I've been saying that. The suppliers say, the other time I told you I spoke to this technical advisor at the Ministry of Agri, and he says, oh, we've signed contract and we expect them to deliver. You've signed contract, but the people say beyond the paper that you've signed, we need the money that you owe us so we can go ahead and deliver. You know, the businessman is not someone that when the money has not come, he will still be pouring in money. The government needs to pay them their monies. Until we do that, the fertilizer will still be scarce on the market and our farmers will be suffering. Look, we're almost in the season. They should be planting by now.
Right.
But where
some are unable to do so. Yeah.
Because the fertilizer is not there. If you have your money, you go and buy it at exorbitant prices. But we had PFJ that was subsidizing it for all of us. But now the money is, government owes and the government is not paying. That's a difficulty.
That's because we are a KJRC.
What does that mean?
Knee-jerk reaction country. We always wait.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's not because government says.
I think if they were ranking knee-jerk reaction countries in the world, I think Ghana would place first.
Oh, really?
We're never proactive.
You think?
Administrations back to back. We like to wait, play the waiting game. And then we get caught, like we got caught with COVID, like we got caught with the Russia-Ukraine
but COVID,
war.
we did better.
It has. I'm not saying that we didn't do anything.
So we weren't that caught. We were a little proactive, weren't we?
Did you follow the trajectory when we were talking about mass production and the rest, local mass production industry? Where is it? Our big talk about vaccination, this and the hub and da.
And meeting the pharmaceutical companies to see how they can
produce
vaccines locally.
Now you get my drift. Republic Press, that's my final newspaper.
But I won't agree with you that we are totally knee-jerk.
No. I'm saying that if we were ranking, we would be number one. And I know why I'm saying what I do. Practically everything in this country is a knee-jerk reaction. The recent release from the Education Ministry of 60 million on the back of the threats and
Okay.
it's that's cannot.
Okay.
Republic Press newspaper.
You have examples to back your claim.
Alan beats Baumia in new poll over who leads NPP. Court issues bench warrant for 3 over 301,000 Ghana cedi unlawful damage. Sewa Bruni in Parliament as NDC busybodies endorse internet trendsetters tomfoolery and then ignore frivolous cases in court. But I'll end with this one. Hey, Benji Diasembebo. He says he's attracted to me, but he keeps losing his erection. It's on page 13 of the newspaper. But to wrap, I have two things for you. Kojo Krampa, I'm watching you live from Fadama. Samuel Kojo Brace, good morning. Hope you had a great day. You have some fans here. Agatha Ampabing says, watching you live from Itwabo. Senior Boscan, Mr. Brace. Senior Boscan. Mr. Brace, long time. Love your discussions, especially the questions. So some shouts for you.
Well, that's Atwabo. Atwabo, where the gas plant is.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
You know what Boscan means?
Which
that's
John Bosco?
No.
Or which one?
Badu Bones, Senior High Technical School. Where?
Badu Day?
Badu Bones.
Chai!
Senior High Technical School.
Chai!
You and I are here.
Okay, you've mentioned it before. You've mentioned it before.
What matters is that we're all here now. Yeah.
And you have a lovely shirt, by the way.
Thank you, my brother. And you have one too.
Yeah. Thank Catherine Gordon for it. Anyway, time to get into sports now. Up next on the AM Show. Thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to get into our big stories. And as you've seen, it has emerged from the work done and published in some journals by scientists at the KNUST that there is the presence of unacceptable levels of pesticide residues like DDT in some fruits on the market. This has been noticed in the Ashanti region, especially with watermelon. Let's get into that discussion, talking about the adverse effects, and these can cause cancer and a whole lot of other things. We'll begin our engagement with Professor Nathaniel Owusu-Bwedi, Department of Chemistry at the KNUST. We also have Dr. Charles Nyaba. He is president of the Peasant Farmers Association. Then there's Dr. Kwejo Kusi, an agronomist with the UCC, and Dr. Henry Kwabena Kokofun, executive director, Environmental Protection Agency. Right, so we'll start the conversation with Professor Bwedi of the Department of Chemistry at the KNUST. Prof, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
Right. It is indeed a very topical matter we've brought up, because what we ingest, what we are consuming, basically makes us. Some will say you are what you eat. But what brought about this entire study that the KNUST even embarked on? What spurred it on?
Well, thank you very much. Greetings to your listeners. So there have been previous works done by groups of people, and not by our group anyway, which inspired us to do this. Since 1993, Ghana has banned the organochlorine pesticides, and yet on the market, on the farms, they are still being used, and they are still being sold illegally to farmers. Studies that were conducted before ours in Accra and other parts of the country showed that organochlorines were still being used. So this inspired us to look at Ashanti region and look at foods in general, because foods are not processed before eating. Most of the time, it's either turned into juice or we eat it raw. In any case, these organochlorine pesticides will not break down, and so will get into our system. So we wanted to see if they were being used and what were the risks associated with its consumption. And that inspired us on to do this work.
So interesting point you make there. Since the 70s thereabout, and we're fully aware of this, we're not supposed to be using the likes of DDT and others, but people are still using them. We'll talk about the EPA and what they could have been doing, but were you shocked by the findings? Were you shocked by the levels of DDT and other pesticides we're seeing present in, fruits like watermelon? Did it take you by surprise?
Well, it did, because I was expecting that, looking at the number of years of ban, we shouldn't expect any at all. And so getting it in higher levels, the residues being greater than the threshold levels, maximum residual levels, was quite worrying. And on top, when we did the risk assessment and realized that children were at a higher risk of getting ill because of consuming these fruits, it was worrying. It was very worrying. It wasn't shocking, though, because of the other works, but we thought that we wouldn't hit that, we wouldn't meet that. We would see, we'll get them in very low concentrations.
Right. So the other works, just to confirm, from what you're saying, it suggests that the other works have also pointed to the fact that we have a lot of these pesticides prevalent in our fruits. That's the picture I'm getting. Is that correct?
Not only in fruits, but also in vegetables and other crops.
Right, right. And I've heard of same for, cabbage and all kinds of other things. So I get your point there. But again, having conducted the study and with what it shows, why is it so alarming? Explain to us.
Well, organochlorine pesticides are poisonous, and they accumulate in the fatty tissues in our bodies, and they bioaccumulate. So, in a way, it is not going to live through excretion as others would break down in the body quickly and live. And they have the tendency to cause diseases, harmful ones like cancer, which you mentioned, and also the nervous system could also be disrupted. Apart from that, these fatty tissues, breast milk, it has a tendency to accumulate in breast milk, which can be passed on to babies. And so it becomes a problem for us. And that is why I think that it's quite worrying.
This indeed is startling, what you mentioned to us. Is there any way of, I mean, I know I'm stretching this, but the fruits affected, especially watermelon, is there any way for a buyer to be able to look or cut or do something to be able to determine that this fruit has too much of a high content of DDT or some other pesticide, and so I shouldn't purchase it? Is that because sometimes you would see these watermelon sellers, especially, they would cut it up, in displaying it, and they will tell you that, oh, it looks this way, so it is very juicy, it is healthy, it is this and that. I hear sometimes they even inject stuff into them. So is there any way for someone who is an end user of being able to determine that, no, this likely is contaminated?
Unfortunately, that will be difficult because without testing, nobody can say that this one has high levels of pesticide residues.
Right.
So I cannot say that by looking at it, you'll be able to say anything or which one has high levels and which one has low levels.
What per your study is the prevalence of these pollutants, if I may call them that, or pesticides in these? I mean, per your study, let's say if you examined 10 watermelons, were all of them affected? What percentage of it, and what picture does that paint?
So we did 5 communities, and the levels were not the same in all 5 communities. Some were higher than others, which means that it is not all the farmers that are using them as rigorously as others. So the prevalence, I would say that it is widespread, but then the use is according to the farmer. Some are reduced and some are kind of high.
What was the highest prevalence rate that you found, and what was the lowest?
So in some cases, they were not detected. So the lowest is not detected.
Right.
But in nanogram per gram, it went up to about, if I will refer,
right,
we had about 2.71 nanogram per gram, which and then in some cases it went up to 22.84 nanogram per gram. We had 48.22 nanogram per gram. So that kind of thing. The highest was about 48.22.
Right. So what does that mean? What does a 48? Give me the scale again. Yeah. What does that mean? What does 24 mean?
So these are concentrations in nanogram per gram, or what we say parts per billion. But these concentrations are high based on the EU and other regulatory agencies' maximum residual levels. And so when they go beyond the maximum residual levels, we say that they are high.
Right. I was about to get to that. So what is the standard there? You've mentioned 2, you've mentioned 4, 24, 48. What is the standard? What should we expect when it comes to these? And so we can know by how much we've exceeded it.
So it depends on the particular pesticide, but all these organochlorine pesticide residues shouldn't go beyond 1 nanogram per gram.
Wow. 1?
Yes.
Most of them?
Yes.
So 1, and apart from those instances where you did not find any, you mentioned 2, you mentioned, if I got it correctly, about 4 or something of the sort, 24, yes. 48. So it means for those that contain about 48 of the measure you're using, yes. It means it is 48 times.
More or less, yes.
What should be expected?
Exactly.
Wow. Wow. Tell me, right before I move on to some of our other guests, so at 48, let's say, at that level, almost 50 times what the standard is, how rapidly could it affect someone who is, let's say, consuming that kind of watermelon, let's say, once or twice a week in about a year? What could be the impact?
Well, I said that it bioaccumulates. And so the ultimate is that the person will fall ill based on the bioaccumulation. And in our study, we took certain factors into consideration. When you are doing risk assessment, you have to assume certain things because it is just a calculation. And so the body weight of the adult was 60 kilograms in this case, and the body weight of the child was 10 kilograms. We looked at a estimated daily consumption of about 64 grams per day. And so that was what we used in our calculation. And so based on these assumptions, we also said that consumption, the absorption rate is 100%, which means that it's bioavailable. Every one of them, every chemical that is on the food will be available to the human being. That is it. So we estimated as 100%. And that was how we did our calculation. In reality, it may not be 100%.
Okay.
But in our calculation, we used 100%. Based on our calculation, we came out with the risk assessment, normal risk assessment, what we call the non-carcinogenic risk assessment, and the carcinogenic risk assessment. And we realized that in both cases, children were at a higher risk of falling ill.
Do hold for me, Prof. Bwedi. Let me bring in Dr. Charles Nyaba, who is, of course, president of the Peasant Farmers Association. Doc, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
If you could just speak a little louder, I'm struggling to hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say good morning to Prof. And I think I'll be interested in seeing the findings of the study because it will be very useful to we, the producers, who also act as consumers at the same time.
Right. Dr. Nyaba, so you're president of the Peasant Farmers Association. I just want to confirm a few things. You have members who produce watermelon, right?
Sure, you're right.
And for decades, we have banned the use of DDT and others. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Have you had any instance of some of your members using this pesticide or DDT, not just in watermelon, but in other plant products that members of your association produce? Has it ever come up?
Yes. So farmers use all kinds of banned chemicals for several reasons, which may not be justified.
Right.
But I would like to link some of the reasons to poor monitoring.
Poor monitoring. Okay.
Poor monitoring, limited knowledge about the harmful effects of some of those chemicals on the health of the farmer himself,
okay,
on the environment, and the consumer. I say this because just yesterday I was in the Volta region where your colleague called me, and I saw a farmer using D4D container and then fill water in and was drinking. And this
was what? Drinking it?
Drinking the water.
Wow.
From that container. So this is how poor information are killing farmers day in and out, and by extension to consumers and the environment. So that's just what I can comment for now.
So we know that there's a problem in that regard. As an association, peasant farmers, what have you done in terms of educating your farmers? Because what you just mentioned, that thing there, it's basically a container that has been used for a poisonous substance. This person, I don't know what process they've gone through, but they shouldn't be going anywhere near it in terms of drinking. But the person is even drinking water out of this thing. So it means that the educational level is very low. But what have you done as an association to educate your farmers on this particular bit?
Yeah, I think the year 2017, 2018, we did a nationwide sensitization program to try to educate farmers to comply by standard in applying some of these chemicals and how to handle them, and even how to decompose the empty cans after application. But you see, the point is that we are farmers. We don't have the expertise like Prof. Nku, who will be able to actually give the detailed harmful effects on either applying them or handling them or even to the environment. And that is the role of PPISD and then EPA to actually send out experts to be able to do this education. And that is not done. In terms of even the application, where some harmful chemicals are banned from being used, farmers sometimes use it without even knowing that these chemicals are banned. Now, my first question even has to do with, if the chemicals are banned, how come we found them agrochemicals being sold for farmers to have access to them in the first place?
That's a question on my mind too, and I'm going to be posing it to the EPA when we have its executive director. The question is why? But do go ahead with your submission. Do go ahead.
Yeah. So in the first place, it means that there is poor enforcement of the rules that we put in place to ensure that these things are not being used. That's one.
Right.
Two, because we also have limited extension officer-farmer ratio. You go to a whole community, and the whole of that season, they have never seen an extension officer with their eye. So, and these are people who will be educating the farmers on agronomic practices, on harmful effects of using certain chemicals on their own health, the consumer, and the environment. And then there are also instances where, because farmers don't have access to market, when they realize that in a particular week, there are buyers for a particular commodity like a tomato or pepper, and they have to meet that market, they forcefully use some of these harmful chemicals which are able to compel the produce to look ready or ready for market, and they harvest them for the buyer. Now, what I know is that some of those chemicals, when you apply them on the crop, you have to wait for a number of days or weeks before those commodities will be wholesome for consumption. But because they are inherent to meet this market, they harvest them. The buyers also put them in the market. You, the consumer, going, wouldn't even know that these are the harmful effects of this chemical. So we saw roasting, we buy them and we consume. So we are affected by all kinds of sicknesses that we are not aware of. Recently, I went to a farming community where they were storing meat. There is this chemicals which is very poisonous that sometimes they use to store the maize to prevent the weevils and other insects from attacking the maize. And when I read the instructions, after using it to store the maize, you have to wait for at least 3 months before those maize are ready for consumption. But there are instances where farmers will have to dispose those maize on the market less than the time frame that the chemical is meant for, because they need money to do one thing or the other. There's nobody monitoring how these chemicals are used and the time frame for the commodity to be disposed on the market. So these are some of the observations that I have made as a farmer myself and working with the farmer groups. But in most occasions, when we have workshops, we try to actually sensitize farmers on some of these things. But how far can we go? And this issue continues. So I think it's something that we should all be worried about.
Let me come to Dr. Kwejo Kusi, who is an agronomist with the University of Cape Coast. Dr. Kusi, thank you for your time as well. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for having me here.
Right. Are you surprised? I'll put that same question I put to Prof earlier. Are you surprised at the sort of levels at which we have pesticides like DDT prevalent in some of our produce, especially in this case, watermelon? Did it hit you, as a surprise? Do we have Dr. Kusi?
Well,
right.
It's not a surprise to me at all. This thing has been there. Yeah. I said it's not a surprise to me at all. Yes. It is not today, it is not yesterday that it came. And this thing is worldwide, but that particular issue, it has been there from time immemorial.
Okay, so it's not a surprise at all to you, but we do know that substances like DDT have been banned for decades. Why are they still so prevalent on the market? That's a cause for concern, isn't it?
Yes, sorry. Yes, it is. It is a huge cause for concern because we know what DDT and these lindane and Drain can do. But we shouldn't look at the point from the use. We should look at the point where the thing is imported to the country. Where does it come from? And all these things. So we should look at the link in the chain, starting from importation to marketers to the farmers and all that. So it is like drugs we sell in the market. Some of them are banned, but we still find them in some drugstores. We still find them in some pharmaceutical shops. How are they able to come to the shop? It means that people are smuggling them into the country and it is on in the markets being sold. And it's as if our minds is always on the banned ones. There are some that are not banned, but because it is being misused, it is serving the purpose of the banned ones.
So which ones, give us some examples of some of those that are not banned, and I get the point you're making.
Glyphosate is being used in the system.
Doc, it appears the connection is a bit...
let me give you just one example here. Oh, sorry for that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better. Could you go back to the point you were making? You were mentioning some of those that are not banned, but are being overused or abused.
Yes, what I'm saying is that it's as if we are concentrating much on the DDT, the lindane, and others. But the ones that are not banned are also being used so that the same effect we are having from the banned ones is getting that are not banned. For example, glyphosate. Other countries are trying to ban glyphosate. For example, Germany. The cabinet in 2020 have said that by 2024, they will get rid of glyphosate from their system, from the use of, for farmer use. But we don't have any roadmap like that. Farmers are using these things without concentrating on what is written on the labels. For example, Dr. Nyaba said something that there is something called PHI, pre-harvest interval. So a farmer is supposed to look at the label and look at the instructions. Some of the instructions on the labels are misleading. For example, you have stated on the label that PHI is equal to 14 days. The farmer who has bought this chemical doesn't know the meaning of PHI because he hasn't been educated on it. So if you don't write pre-harvest interval, which might be somehow okay, but you write PHI is equal to 14 days, where it means that the farmer, when he applies the chemical today, he should wait for 14 days before he can sell the produce or harvest the produce. So before you harvest, within 14 days, but they apply the chemical today, and then somebody comes tomorrow to buy the produce, and then they harvest it for them because they need money for something else. So some of these things, as Dr. Nyaba said, that the education is low. So we should concentrate on all agrochemicals, not necessarily the bad ones. The bad ones are there. We should talk about that one, fine. But the other ones that are being abused. For example, I have stated that some farmers we went to, when we interviewed them, some of them, we asked them, how are you able to apply the chemical on your crops? And some of them said that what they do is that the cap, the container cap, sometimes you see that there are some caps they attach to the container that should be used for measurement. What they do is that because some of them can't read and write, they just pour some of them in the knapsack and then spray. Sometimes the funny thing or the serious thing is that they keep on pouring and then they taste it. They even dip their fingers in it and then touch it on their tongue to see whether the concentration is very high. So if it pinch their tongues, it's wow, this one can kill the insects. So the continuous tasting, and then the way they apply the thing without using the protective clothing and all that, farmers will have dizziness, headaches, itchiness. Some of them are even with sexual weaknesses, if not impotency. So it is a huge concern.
And all of this that you're mentioning, even the sexual weakness and the impotence, on the back of, for lack of knowledge, even tasting these things. And of course, sometimes not using the right protective gear. They are suffering all of these things.
Yes, they are. And if they are doing that, what about us who are also eating it? And then the sad thing is that the innocent consumer cannot see, as Prof said, the innocent consumer cannot see that this cabbage I'm buying, this watermelon I'm buying, this vegetable I'm buying is contaminated. So the link is so long, and if we don't take it step by step to look at every link, we will start from the farmers, but we will not get anywhere because the chemicals might still be in the market. So I think we should take it as a holistic way of doing it, from parliament, from government to parliament to EPA to PPRSD, to the farmers, to associations, and to us, the consumers. Even for MOFA, training these extension agents to, organize the farmers and train them on these things. It is funny enough that some pesticides that are supposed to be used on crops, that are not supposed to be used for other crops, are used on the crops. I said yesterday that one farmer we visited, a cabbage farmer, his crops were doing so well. You can see that there are no insects on the field. Then we asked, what are you doing? He said, unfortunately for me, I got some chemical from my friend, and it has been helping a lot. So we said, okay, if you have the container here, let us see so that we can also recommend for other farmers. Then he brought it, and it was cocoa akati master. Some chemical, some agrochemical that is used on cocoa.
Right.
And if you look at the cocoa, the skin of cocoa or the rind of cocoa is very thick. Right. So when you use that one, for the residue to be in the beans is somehow minimal. But on cabbage that is eaten raw, that is used in most salads, and they are using cocoa akati master on this one. It is very critical that we need to take a look at it again.
Wow. I mean, some of what you're telling me this morning is downright scary. Look, from the abuse of some pesticides that are legal, are meant to be used, but they are being overused, to the use of banned pesticides, and now to the use of pesticides that are not even, because they are crop specific. And in this instance, like you rightly said, cocoa has a thick skin, so the absorption rate getting to the pods might be difficult. But cabbage, and you're spraying directly on it, people consuming that over time are definitely going to suffer the consequences. Which brings me to my next question. Professor Bwedi, I would like you to address this one for us. Looking at some of what has been discussed here this morning, where should we lay the blame? I mean, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is there. We have the Environmental Protection Agency. Have they been up to the task? If all of this is going on, I want to believe that all of us at some point have consumed, whether it is watermelon today or pineapple tomorrow or cabbage here, we've consumed products that have gone through this, funneled through this cycle of either using the wrong chemicals or overusing the right chemicals and all of that. I mean, where do we lay the blame?
Well, I'm glad you said you're going to get the EPA boss on the show. This comes to regulation, because if the chemicals are in the system, then farmers, if it's available to farmers, they will use it because it is very effective. But if the chemicals are banned, then they shouldn't be in the country at all. Some of the farmers are ignorant of the chemicals that they are using. And so I cannot just put the blame on the farmers. There is supposed to be education, which other speakers have talked about. And so I will still look at the government regulatory agencies who are supposed to ensure that these chemicals do not get into the country for them to be available to the farmers. So I wouldn't say I'm blaming EPA or FDA or any of these organizations, but I think that if we are strict on importation on some of these chemicals, the ban, if we enforce the ban, then it will not get to the farmers for them.
But that's exactly my point, Prof. You see, the buck must stop somewhere. The blame, I mean, like has been mentioned, Germany has its regulation and they are planning when it comes to even some pesticides. Moving on, do we have a plan? If we don't have a plan, why don't we have a plan? Are we not aware that these things have been happening? Because I've heard of these things even before conducting this interview. For years, I've heard of the fact that DDT is being used in certain areas, which is why you would want to be careful where you purchase certain fruits. But so my question is, if we don't lay the blame somewhere, how will we get any resolution to it? I am not in charge. My only situation would be that maybe in purchasing, I might want to be more careful where I'm buying my food from. But there are regulatory bodies that should be acting. If they are not, shouldn't we blame them?
Yeah, so in this case, the regulatory agencies are EPA and FDA. And Ghana is a signatory to the Stockholm Convention, which bans these organochlorine pesticides. Ghana is also a signatory to the Rotterdam Convention, which is supposed to regulate the importation of hazardous chemicals and the rest. We also have the National Narcotic Control Board, which is also there to regulate some of these chemicals or banned chemicals. So they are all supposed to help the system so that the country is cleared of some of these harmful chemicals. But once regulations are laxed or not enforced, and people could smuggle these chemicals into the country, then such things will continue to happen.
Dr. Nyaba, in terms of addressing the issue, apart from the planning weaknesses that we have in our system, Dr. Nyaba, what would you say we ought to be looking at? Is it the tightening of regulation, or what do we have to do? Do we have Dr. Charles Nyaba?
Yes, please.
Yes, Doc. That question was directed at you.
Yeah. Please, can you mention the question again?
Okay. So I was just saying that beyond some of the challenges that we've mentioned, beyond our lack of planning, for example, that we have seen in terms of dealing with some of these pesticides and even phasing them out, what more can we do by way of regulation and education, especially from the standpoint of agencies like the EPA, and again, you could talk about the overarching Ministry for Food and Agriculture. What more should we be doing? Because it appears we are just feeding our population with diseases, and it will come back to us with health consequences and with cost consequences for our country.
Okay, so I remember, as I said, 4 years ago, we were trying to do some work with the EPA, where they were to educate some lead farmers because of limited...
Dr. Nyaba, my sincere apologies. Before you answer that question, I just want to do this, okay? Because of the urgency of the situation. We have the executive director for the EPA, Henry Kokofu, and I want to have a state because they are crucial in this discussion. So with your permission, Dr. Nyaba, let me bring in Mr. Kokofu, if that is okay with you. Dr. Kokofu.
That's fine, yeah.
All right. Dr. Kokofu, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, sir.
Great. So you're fully aware of the situation. We're talking about the use of some banned substances like DDT on our farms to, make produce ripen before their time. But in this discussion, just to give you a summary of what we've had so far, we've spoken about the fact that these farmers are using some pesticides that are legal, but overusing them. We also have other instances where they are not even using crop-specific pesticides. So something that is used, akate cocoa, it is used on cocoa beans or pods. It is being used on cabbage and the rest. What is the EPA doing about this situation? How come people have access to DDT, for example?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. When you come to EPA, we have a center called CCMC. That is the Chemical Control Management Center. And it is well-equipped facility or unit that has capable men and women who are qualified to, as it were, control the use of chemicals in the country. Indeed, importation of chemicals, we do also have an input as to permitting. The whole situation has been the abuse of almost everything in this country. The normal drugs or medicines for consumption. If you call the FDA, if you contact our medical health, the public health systems and all that, you get to know the abuse, the pent-up abuse of medicine, whether herbal or orthodox. So be any other substances or products that we find ourselves in. DDT, as it were, the full name is diphenyl trichloroethane. It is a pesticide, and it is among a number of pesticides that has been banned in this country for long. The use of it, the importation of it has been banned. And it is in conjunction with the Stockholm Convention that sought to internationally ban the use of all the basic chloroethanes, if you like. Now, the use of pesticides in general has been something that as a nation we need to look at it critically. You rightly said that there may be an unbanned substance used as pesticides, but as to the volume, as to the percentage, the usage, the method or the procedure or the processes through which these substances are to be used is lacking, and that is squarely the lack of knowledge in all these directions. That's why we've been advocating for farm extension officers who have requested knowledge in these things to be on the farms to educate farmers on the use of these materials.
But all of that, you see, I was saying shortly before you joined the conversation that the buck must stop somewhere. We know it is banned. Why is it even accessible? Because once it's accessible, people will use it. And why isn't there the right education on these pesticides so that they will not even be used? Because from the discussion, the thread shows that a lot of these farmers don't even understand what they are doing. Some are even tasting the pesticide. That's how dangerous it is.
Yes, it's banned. So officially, we don't expect this importation in the system. However, you and I know the smuggling of most of these contraband goods into our society or onto our land, and through the various illegal routes of entry at our borders, the porousness of our borders, we all are aware of. We've been doing and taking steps to do sampling on the market to try to check some of these things. But it's unfortunate, and people are so recalcitrant and always want to do. We want to invite the researchers. We want to know more and further, so we can close in on exactly where the findings are or what they found it, so that we'll be able to, by way of recommendation, also get down there and then work on it.
So just to chip in, this latest one, and it's not the first, but this latest one was conducted in the Mampong area in Ashanti. Okay. And it is alarming because when I was interacting with Prof on this bit, Professor Bwedi, he mentioned that per EU standards or, global standards, you should have, I've forgotten the measurement he used, but just about 1% of it prevalent in these crops. In some instances, we have as much as 48 prevalent in the crops. That is disastrous. I mean, someone consuming watermelon like this for about a year. So what are we going to technically do about it? What more can the EPA, for example, do about it to protect end users?
Yes, we're going to collaborate more with our other stakeholders, our institutions or authorities. FDA, for instance, the Ministry of Agriculture, the department or the unit that deals with pesticides and all that, we're going to also have. And we have a committee in place. I've asked my director to immediately convene that pesticides committee so we'll be able to dissect the research findings and then do further engagement. The agrochemical sellers industry have blossomed or have boomed over the years, and they are scattered all around. You've taken steps to re-register them, re-license them, and then weed out all those illegal activities or those who engage in some of these illegalities. Because the farmers get access of these chemicals or products from these shops and all that. So it is a major stakeholder engagement that we've got.
Okay. Right. So you speak of stakeholder engagement. Just to wrap the conversation with you, I just want very practical solutions. To wrap from your end, you are the EPA. Yes. You have what you have to do. You know exactly what your mission is, your vision, and what is expected of you. On the back of this, because there have been previous reports, on the back of this latest report, do tell me, what measures are you going to put in place as an EPA? So we should expect the EPA to be in Mampong. We should expect the EPA to have some sort of discussion with the KNUST lecturers who conducted the study. We should expect the EPA to do X, Y, Z. Can you give me a roadmap? Just something that we can expect the EPA to do on the back of this, within this quarter or this year?
Yes, 2 months ago, EPA was on the ground. We see some of these products in Techiman. currently, as we speak, Ashanti Region EPA is undertaking market survey of some of these. There are others that are even not banned, but they are not licensed, and their efficacies are suspect. So, yes, I agree with you that we should hit the ground running. We are already on the ground, but we're going to intensify and then work collaboratively with the police, with the other agencies that I've mentioned, FDA in particular. You've been collaborating with them all these while. So we're going to go ahead and do the market surveillance and then other. It is not Mampong alone. The mapping of agrochemical use centered mostly within the Ashanti regional enclave, leading to Bono and then Bono East region. And then the next place of prominence had to do with the northern region. So we're going to encompass all those areas and then make sure we clamp down on the use, importation, illegal importation, and distribution of these substances, particularly the DDT that we talked about.
Dr. Kokofu, so if we come back to you in a month, you would be able to give us some positive update. The EPA would be on the ground working on this specific situation. Can you confirm for me?
You may not necessarily have to come to us. We may even come public, and then you will ascertain. You may have to go back and then see whether the problem or the challenges are tackled. Meanwhile, the researchers, we're going to extend hand of invitation to them, and our doors are open. First, they can contact my office at Kumasi, or I'll ask the Kumasi Ashanti Regional Director to get in touch with them, and then we follow it up. So thank you very much, and I think the media is doing quite a good job. The awareness creation and education of environmental issues, particularly those that borders on public health, like as we are discussing, is quite paramount in the fight against illegality, so far as environmental governance and health issues are concerned.
Dr. Kokofu, we greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for making the time to speak to us this morning. All right. Just to wrap off the conversation. So, gentlemen, Professor Bwedi, Dr. Nyaba, and Dr. Kusi, I'll give you less than a minute each if you can manage it. What is the way forward? What should we be doing? I'll start with you, Dr. Nyaba.
Yeah, so I think the EPA boss outlined a very good initiative. Education is key. We need to try to sensitize the farmers, sensitize the consumers, but I would want to also suggest that in addition to that, if we can introduce something like a barcode that once in a while maybe EPA or whichever body is concerned will just take sample products and try to scan them to know the level of chemicals in them so that we'll be able to enforce whatever we want to do. And then we should also try to enforce the policies by at least do routine checks in our agrochemical shops to see the kind of chemicals that are being sold, especially the DDT.
Okay. For your concluding comments, Dr. Amwa?
Yes, thank you very much. I think that, as I said earlier, we don't have to take this thing from just one link in the chain. We should start from the government down to Parliament, to EPA, to PPRSD, to MOFA, to the farmers and to the consumers. But starting from one point, one study that we were trying to do is to do traceability studies. That if you go to a bigger market, you buy some vegetables and then you check the levels of these chemicals, and then you trace back to the farmers. When you find out that the farmers are aware of what they are doing, there can be legal issues, so that market women will not buy from them. The farmers will stop using that because now they know there are legal issues in this, because it's very critical. So my wish is that there are other things we can do at a farm. As an agronomist, I know that there are certain things we can do at a farm that can reduce this. But we should take it holistically, because if the chemical is not there, definitely the farmer will not use it. Right. But if it is there and he's using it, what is he supposed to do? We should have a roadmap that, let's say, by 2026, Ghana is going to eradicate this. Ghana is going to do this.
Okay.
That is what we should do. We should come together as a group and then work together so that we can get rid of these things that are harmful to human health.
Professor Boydi, you have the final bite. Some 30 seconds if you can manage it.
Thank you. So I will still come back to a regulation that we should ensure as a country that these loopholes are blocked and the law enforcement agencies are up to the task of stopping the smuggling in of these banned chemicals. Also, there should be regular monitoring on the markets, as the EPA boss has said they are doing, so that some of these problems can be kept, that it will not lead to an environmental or health crisis in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. We had Professor Nathianolo Owusu-Boydi, Department of Chemistry at the KNUST. We had Dr. Charles Nyaba, President of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Dr. Kwejo Amwa, agronomist at the UCC, and Dr. Henry Kukofu, Executive Director, EPA. We'll keep our eyes and our tabs on this matter. But after the break, when we return, we'll be talking about more pertinent matters when it has to do with the law. We'll be right back. Well, let's talk now about the Stanford Seed Transformation Program, and to tell us more about it, Jeff Prickett. He is Global Director, Stanford Seed, Africa and Asia. We also have Linda Amper, Founder and CEO, KAD Manufacturing Limited. Linda also is President of the Stanford Seed Transformation Network, Ghana. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Good morning.
Okay, so my initial thoughts, and I'll have you give us some education. When I heard seed, I was thinking in a certain direction. Jeff, do tell us, what is the Stanford Seed Transformation Project all about?
So the Stanford Seed Transformation Program is a business acceleration program targeting SMEs in Africa and South Asia. So we're working with entrepreneurs in emerging markets to help them grow and scale their business, and then have a positive impact on society by creating jobs and increasing the level of prosperity.
So it is one of your products?
It is one. It's our flagship program. We got started here in West Africa in 2013. We've then expanded to East and Southern Africa and South Asia over the past few years.
Okay. And what would you say the impact has been in Africa and specifically in Ghana so far?
So far, we have companies from across West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa, as I've said. We started here in West Africa, and the program covers West Africa from Senegal all the way over to Cameroon. 150 plus or minus companies have come from Ghana. So this is our 150 companies.
Wow.
So, and this is our base of operations in West Africa, and these companies have exceeded revenue growth relative to what you see in terms of the market, the GDP growth here, about 6 times. Based on our impact report, and in terms of job creation, more than 10 times what you see the growth in the market here in Ghana. So very positive indicators, and Linda's actually a great example of that.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Linda, from your end, how did you get involved in all of this? How did this start?
Well, for me, a friend of mine who knew what I was going through running a business, we all know the challenges running a business in this part of the world.
Right.
I was tired, I was burnt out, almost ready to throw in
the towel. Right.
And so he recommended that there's this program offered by the Stanford University Business School. And so he introduced me to the program and I joined. And to be honest, it's the best thing that has happened to me in my business life. Because I see 2 things. There are people who go into entrepreneurship who have had the benefit of working in certain organizations and therefore have an idea how to run a business. And then there are those of us who just jump on the bandwagon and just roll, so you don't know what to expect running a business. And in this program, you're given the tools. So you're helped how to structure your business, You're giving the tools on how to lead a team, how to build a team, which is very important, how to share your vision with the team so that they buy into, and then you have a common goal. And so once you have a team that is aligned, then everything it's in place.
So it's more like a structural arrangement, how to get things
Yes.
going. Like Jeff was explaining to me earlier, it's not so much of seed in the sense of we're pumping money. This is not a venture capitalist situation, but they give you the right models.
Exactly.
And you follow and you build your business.
Exactly, because really, a lot of businesses cry about loans, we need money to, but if you get the money and you don't have the tools, the right setup, the right structures in place, you will fail.
Right.
You will fail and you lose money. So I feel that for a business, it's the tools you need to be able to even manage money. You need the tools to be able to scale up. You need the tools to be able to manage a team. With that, then you can go places. Otherwise, yes, you can get all the money in the world, but you will still make losses.
And I'll come back to you shortly on, Jeff has told us about the number of companies that have been affected. I'll come back to you shortly to find out from you who have experienced this and you're president of the Ghana team, what exactly the impact has been from different organizations. But let's also go on Zoom and interact with Emmanuel Kitcha, Regional Director of Stanford Seed West Africa. Mr. Kitcha, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure having you. Tell us, so Jeff has been giving us some sneak peeks into what you've been doing here, but specifically in West Africa, what has the Stanford Seed project or program meant for businesses over the last few years?
I would say in short that it's been the game changer for many businesses, not only in Ghana, but across West Africa and the other parts of Africa, namely Eastern, Central, and Southern Africa, where we have footprints, and also in South Asia, where we have footprints. The businesses have often come into the program feeling and thinking that they were successful, only to come and discover after going through the program that there is really more to what they call success, and that it goes beyond what they had all this while assumed. And so I would say, if you ask me today, just mentioning some of the companies like Yahoo Medical Center, Joy Sam Ghana Limited, Haptel, International Community School, ICS, you're talking about Type Company, Kulenu Industries, card manufacturing industries, where Linda is coming from, Happy Kids Academy. You're talking about IT Consortium, Spectra Global, Home Foods, and just so many of them that have been through this program, who have not only exponentially grown, and who have also not just transformed, but have scaled up in the sense that many of them have got footprints beyond that one footprint that they used to have before coming into the program. Today, I can say a company like Yahoo Medical Center has 4 footprints in Ghana, and the 5th one is on the way, and something that did not used to be there before they joined the program. Others have expanded beyond Ghana and are operating in other West African countries, and some have. I was going to say some have even ventured to go beyond Africa to the US.
Right. So the connection is a bit patchy, I see. But with Yahoo, for example, yes, I know, I see their footprint. I operate with them on some level. So very correct what you're saying. But I also know that you're looking for others who would come into the picture, into the fray, and benefit from this program. How is that going? How do people get access to this program?
So basically, potential applicants would have to go online and apply online, and then they'll go through the process of screening and selection. And if you are fortunate to be selected, because the spots available are limited, because we're serving not just Ghana, but the entire West Africa. So once you are selected, and then you would come into the program and take you through the journey that Linda has been through. Currently, COVID has kind of forced us to go into a hybrid mode of operation. We started off in 2020 with a full virtual operation. But we are hoping that COVID will completely be gone, and then we'll be able to go back to the way we run in the program face-to-face. Worst case scenario, it will be a hybrid version of the program.
All right. Do hold for me, Emmanuel. Let me come back to Linda before I cross over to Jeff. So I wanted to find out from you, and he made an interesting point. You've been there. You've done that. Some people, businesses watching us might be asking themselves, okay, so what are the processes that Linda went through to get to this point where she's, all praise and laudatory messages about the SEED program? Tell us.
All right, so you are taking through finance, how to manage your finances. A lot of entrepreneurs, in my own case, I was the CEO, I was the finance manager, I was the production manager.
I see where you're going with this.
Exactly. So
one person, you're all in all.
1,000. How do you succeed doing that, and how do you scale up? So you're giving the tools on how to even manage your finance person. So basic knowledge on how to understand financial processes, and when they do the accounting, what do you look out for as an entrepreneur, as a manager, leadership, you're giving that. So basically, you're giving the tools to be able to manage more people. The basic idea for this whole program is to help alleviate poverty. So if the businesses scale, we employ more people. When you give somebody skills, when you give them employment, you are helping save lives. You're putting food on people's tables. So that's the basic idea of this whole program. So as an entrepreneur, if you are able to support one person to feed their family, it's a win-win.
It's impact made. Before I come to Jeff and wrap the conversation with you, I'd just like you to be practical about this. So, Nyaho, for example, the example cited by Emmanuel Kecha, has grown maybe fourfold. Let's just put it that way. Their footprint has expanded. In your instance, when you look at your entity before, pre-Stanford Seed, and now, about how many times averagely would you say, what has been the impact?
About 300 times.
300 times?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeff, that is mind-blowing. So what can we look forward to from the SEED program, Stanford SEED program, and what would you say to people who might be thinking, oh, I need to tap into that? What's the message?
Well, we're continuing to try to recruit wonderful business leaders and companies that can have an impact like Linda from across Africa and South Asia. We're currently in the recruitment cycle. The application's open through June 1st for a program that will start next January. It lasts 11 months, and I think one thing that's unique about the program, we work with the CEOs, but we also come into the company and work with the leadership team. So it's not all upon the CEO's shoulders to implement the learnings. We're helping to implement at the company level. So I think that's something that's very unique. As Emmanuel alluded to, we've had to make a lot of innovations with COVID over the past few years, and we continue to listen to our participants to always continue to improve the program, and I think that will be ongoing. So if people are interested, they can go to our website, seed.stanford.edu, and apply right now.
Seed.stanford.edu.
That is correct. Okay. And the transformation program link will be on there, and you can apply right there and find out information. There's contact for our West Africa office as well. So if you have any questions, please reach out.
Yes, and the contact for West Africa telephone number 0244 550 766.
Can you repeat that?
0244 550 766.
Okay.
The good thing about this program also is that, let me throw that in.
Just to chip in briefly for the sake of time. No, go ahead.
Oh, sure, okay. So when you finish the program, you automatically join the network. Now, these are a group of people who have gone through the program, who are on various journeys in their transformation. So you have people who have been there, done that. You'll be in a safe space, people to share ideas with, people to urge you on, people to counsel you and work with you on your journey.
Right. You'll never be alone.
No.
Though I'm not a Liverpool fan. Walking
with.
But thank you.
That's right.
Thank you so much, first of all, to Emmanuel Kecha, who joined us, West Africa, and then President of the Stanford Seed Transformation Network, Ghana, Linda Ampa. Thank you for joining as well. Jeff, let me get the name correct, Prickett, Global Director, Stanford Seed, Africa and South Asia. Thank you so much. And all the best on this journey.
Thank you.
All right. So do stay. Now, Monetizing Your Creativity and Innovation is a new book by Sarah Noko Anku that will launch at the Kofi Annan ICT Center on Tuesday, the 26th of April at 9 a.m. The author of the book joins us shortly on Zoom. We'll be interacting with her right next on the AM show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have a card? So in this next belt, we're going to be telling you about a wonderful book, Monetizing Your Creativity and Innovation. It's a new book by Sarah Anku that will launch at the Kofi Annan ICT Center on Tuesday, the 26th of April at 9 a.m. We're joined by the author of the book. Sarah, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So, creativity and innovation. First of all, is this your first work?
My first work as I'm working with my team, my current team.
Okay.
We are a team of 5. I have 4 co-authors for this book, but I have done some other works in the past, yes.
And why the focus on innovation and creativity? Of course, I know where our world is headed, but why the need to put together this piece on innovation and creativity?
To begin with, I'm an IP practitioner, intellectual property legal practitioner, and the role of IP in innovation cannot be taken for granted. It is the intellectual property that you can use as a tool to harness the economic value of your creativity and innovation. My focus on innovation and creativity, it's based on the knowledge or the recognition of the creativity amongst Ghanaians, the innovative ideas of Ghanaians, especially the youth. And I get really worried when I see the youth coming up with all these ideas, and yet they are unable to move forward with these ideas into creative products of value on the market so that it could help their own lives, their lifestyle, their financial situations, and the society as a whole. If you have the ideas and you cannot translate the ideas into products of value on the market to help yourself, then you tend to lose a lot. You don't really benefit from your creativity. Hence my focus on monetizing your creativity and innovation using intellectual property tools.
Very interesting as we bring in the legal aspects, intellectual property and all of that. But I look at the cover of the book and something piqued my interest. I see a Kweku Anansi-like character, with multiple arms. Is it the multiple streams of income that you can get if you harness the right creativity and innovation? How you can monetize it, just to get a bit of an idea.
I like what you just said about multiple streams, looking at the arms and multiple streams, linking it to multiple streams of income. So the Kweku Anansi you have there is the mythical god of knowledge that we have in Ghana. We know Kweku Anansi as a spider with all the arms. So actually the arms represent Kweku Anansi's arms and has knowledge about everything. We presented this book and using this concept so that we break the information down to a more friendly and hopefully a more acceptable manner for our target readers. It is in the form of a question and answer, process or format in a classroom setting, so that people ask questions and Kweku Anansi, the god of knowledge, responds to the questions. And that simplifies the whole concept for the readers, because we know that intellectual property has not been a very friendly subject, and it looks too abstract. Meanwhile, it is a subject that affects all of us. It applies to everybody. We create all the time, and we use people's creativity all the time. But how do you translate this creativity into money? How do you do that?
And it's very interesting and refreshing, you know, how you put it. And the God of knowledge, for example, will be answering your questions, very pertinent questions, of course, that you have in the book. But before we talk about the launch and what people can expect, where they should go to, of course, the Kofi Annan ICT Center, I'd just like to find out from you. So what are the expectations? What are you hoping that as people purchase this book, they will attain? And how will this book impact the lives of those watching us, should they get copies?
So let me start from my experiences in my years of practice. I realized that when you talk to people about how to create value from their innovations using intellectual property tools, they tend to understand for a brief moment, and probably because the subject appears to be a bit abstract, they tend to forget along the way, or I don't know, they don't. So this one, it's supposed to be a reference book for them. So if as a young person, you create something, you are in the music industry, you are into technologies, you develop an app, you design a dress, shoe, bag, cars, whatever you come up with, you can then go to this book and find out what does this book say about my creativity. When I come up with something, what should I do? You look at the subject, chapter 1, it talks about your generation of IP, and then you go on to say, if I have to protect, what are the steps that I have to take? You go on to chapter 2 will take you through the steps that you need to take to protect these ideas. Then you move on to chapter 3, how I need to make money out of this idea of mine. How do I do that? You can then reference, it tells you can license, you can assign, you can join, you can enter into joint venture, and so on and so forth. And then when it comes to chapter 4, it talks about how to enforce it, because if you have all these rights and you're unable to enforce it, then everybody can compete with you. So it tells you how to enforce these rights that are granted to you. And then we move on to chapter 5 that gives these trending issues on IP, the AIs, the blockchain, the NFTs, and how IP relates to those trending issues. So it's a form of a reference for everybody. Everybody can benefit from this book. You just take it, look at the area that applies to you, you read it, and it's very helpful.
You've stoked my interest.
Yes.
You've stoked my interest already with your talk about artificial intelligence, blockchain, and all of that. But to wrap the conversation, so we know the launch is next Tuesday. What is the time? And the venue is the Kofi Annan ICT Center, right?
That is so. It's 9 o'clock at the Kofi Annan ICT Center. We are going to have exhibitions of some works of entrepreneurs, and we are going to provide them with some IP clinic information as to what to do with what they have. It's actually the World IP Day on that day, and the theme is on the youth, the IP and youth, innovating for a better future. So it's a whole, we're going to have a whole lot to discuss on that day. And our special guest of honor is the Minister for MESTI, and our chairman is our own Deputy Minister for Tourism, Honorable Okreko-Mantey. And we have some other special guests there coming in. We have Honorable Betty Mold-Idrisu, we have Sylvanus Tete-Tamaklo. We have a few others coming in to support this book launch, because it's a subject that appeals to quite a number of people. We need to find a way around to navigate this concept of innovation and monetizing your innovation. So that is what we have. So it's at Kofi Annan Center, 9 a.m. It's a half-day program. And everybody's welcome.
Okay, so you were making a final point, very briefly.
So my final point is that to diffuse this book and make it accessible, especially to the youth, we have a program we call the Own a School program, where you can purchase and donate to the youth, especially those who cannot afford the book, yet they need the information from there. So you can choose to own a school, buy for maybe your alma mater, and just let the youth have access to this book.
Thank you so much, Sarah Noko Anku, for joining us. Of course, it's all about monetizing your creativity and innovation. And we wish you the very best in this latest endeavor. So that was Sarah. But to cap off all the conversations we've had on the show this morning, we're going to talk about some of what the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Godfrey Adame, shared yesterday. And it has to do with not hearing frivolous cases in court, just to summarize, and again, televising cases of a national concern. Well, we're joined by our guests this morning who will be giving us some scope to that conversation. I see Lawyer Bobby Banson in the background. Lawyer Bobby Banson will join the conversation. Good morning, Lawyer.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a pleasure having you.
Same here. It's a pleasure to be on your show again.
Okay, so let's set the tone for the conversation. I mean, in the next 7-8 minutes, we'll wrap up. But succinctly, what is your initial reaction to what the Attorney General has been saying? Don't hear these frivolous cases. Don't pay them any mind. Let them be decided in the chambers. And when it comes to cases of a national scope, telecast them in court. What's your take?
Well, with the first part about the court not hearing frivolous cases, it's actually a provision in our Courts Act where a court has the jurisdiction to strike out a matter as being frivolous or vexatious. But how that procedure can be adopted, I do not think the Attorney General intended that the courts on its own, without giving the parties that opportunity to be heard, whether or not a case is frivolous, can do that in chambers as it were. So that if I file an action, I mean, nobody would file an action that in the opinion of that person is frivolous. Every person will go to court because the person thinks he has a case. Now, it behoves on the other party to raise the issue that, oh, this matter is frivolous or vexatious, and so the court should not even go to the merit of the case. But there's jurisprudence, and the courts have defined what frivolous or vexatious actions would mean.
Right.
And so that if I, for example, if I decide to sue multimedia, then it behoves on multimedia to
hopefully not.
Hopefully not. It behoves on multimedia to bring an application to the court that the matter is frivolous or vexatious. Now, if multimedia does not even bring the application, and the court is of the opinion that the matter is frivolous or vexatious, the court cannot sit in chambers, as it were, loosely, to say that, okay, this matter is frivolous or vexatious, and so we have given an opinion, accordingly the matter is struck out. Right. I think that even if in the opinion of the court, they deem the matter as frivolous or vexatious, they would invite the parties or their counsel to address them on the position that the court has taken.
So basically, you're saying that these cases, no matter how frivolous, no matter how vexatious they may be, they must travel their natural course in court rather than just quash them at the start, because we could get it wrong at some times.
No, they need not travel the natural course.
Okay.
So at the preliminary stage, again, I'm using the word loosely, at the initial stages,
right,
when the writ is filed, a party or the court may on its own raise the issue without going through the merit or going through a trial or the natural course, as you have referred to it as, so that you would have to address the court whether or not the matter is frivolous. So yes, that provision already exists, but how it's been adopted is the problem, because everybody wants his matter to be heard.
Okay, so
the court cannot sit in chambers and without giving the parties the opportunity to be heard on the issue of whether it is frivolous.
All right.
So if the court decides that it or thinks it is frivolous, it must give the parties an opportunity to justify or refute that assertion by the court.
And your point is very clear. I just want your quick take, maybe in less than a minute. When it comes to some matters of a national scope that the AG says must be telecast, so that sometimes we dispel the doubts that people have in their minds. How do you react to that?
I think that, yes, on to some extent, I agree, like we've had with the election petition, but we also know the consequences of it. I mean, the national resources, the attention, the fact that you are opening it to. I think I read his statement. The second part of it is that those who misconstrue the decisions of the court or in their post-judgment or post-hearing commentaries scandalize the court should be punished.
Right.
Because there are laws that regulate that. So I think the emphasis, because the reason why he said that was to avoid misconceptions and misrepresentation of the court outcomes or the decisions by the court. And so if there are avenues to punish those who engage in that post-hearing media analysis in a way that scandalizes the court or misrepresents what the court has said, I think that is where we should emphasize on and not necessarily publicizing it. Because if you publicize it, it is English language. People may still misinterpret it. People may still have their own understanding of it. Yes.
Lawyer Bobby Peasant, we're pressed for time today. I think we'll find time and do more on this particular subject. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Do we have Kweku Paintil on the line?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, Kweku, quick one. I'm not going to be fair to you, but in about a minute and a half, what are your quick reactions to these two as put forward by the AG?
I think within the context of what he said, I believe he was speaking with specific reference to the Supreme Court. That's the way I understand what I heard. Is that the case?
Well, partly because we reference cases, the election petition.
There's no such thing as a frivolous case. There's nothing like that.
Right.
It's a misconception. There's no such thing. Cases, somebody loses a case in the High Court, loses in the Court of Appeal, and wins in the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
So from the perspective of those two lower courts, the case was frivolous. And that's the way it goes. And there are the turning fortunes, and so forth and so on. So there's no such thing as a frivolous case. If you take what's currently going on in the Supreme Court about what happened last week, in which the Supreme Court gave a ruling, an injunction in favor of one side, the position of the other side is that the case ought not to have commenced at all in the Supreme Court.
Right.
So from their standpoint, the matter is frivolous and vexatious. And therefore, if somebody took that position and that matter was decided at that point, then you take the view that the matter was frivolous. But it takes judges to determine the frivolity of a case. So, but I think the real issue, if I understand it, is the fact that our courts are inundated with all manner of cases.
Right.
I would say that I would rather that citizens will inundate the court with all manner of cases than to do anything that will frustrate anybody from ventilating his grievance in court. The real issue, as far, for instance, the Supreme Court is concerned, is to how to regulate cases that come to the Supreme Court. In the U.S., for instance, not all cases have the chance or opportunity at all of reaching the U.S. Supreme Court. Cases are selected, at certain levels for consideration of the Supreme Court. Ghana, as a sovereign country, we're entitled also to determine how we want our Supreme Court to function. Because what is happening now is that any case that starts in the district court can end up in the Supreme Court. We have to agree among ourselves as a country how our Supreme Court must function. Whether, for instance, we must create divisions of the Supreme Court to deal with specific matters. Whether, for instance, we must adopt the U.S. approach. Whether, for instance, indeed, there is no end. But it is for us as a country to determine for ourselves how we want our Supreme Court to function.
Okay.
So that's it.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but in this short space, you've made some very interesting points, Lawyer Paintil. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. As we wrap, I cannot go without shouting out Catherine Gordon of Catherine Garments, who fitted me out with this wonderful dress. You can reach out to her as well, 0277 580050. She's located in Medina New Road around the Rolling Circle. Happy birthday to Samuel Kwesi Akwa of the Church of Pentecost Matayeko District. May God bless you immensely and answer all your prayers. May He bless you. It's from your wife and children. And on that very blessing note, we say goodbye to you on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akako. Have a lovely weekend.